Engaging in sexual activity is a normal part of life, but it's important to be aware of the risks at hand. One of these risks is contracting HIV, or human immunodeficiency virus. To give some history, HIV originates from a species of chimpanzee in Central Africa. It was likely contracted by humans back when chimps were hunted and chimp blood got into their systems. Well, what is HIV? It's a virus that attacks the body's immune system, aka the white blood cells. This leaves a compromised immune system, leaving one more susceptible to illnesses. HIV can be transmitted many ways, the top culprit being unprotected sexual activity. Other modes of transmission include injection needles used for drugs and HIV pregnancies. HIV can be transmitted through semen, blood, vaginal fluid, and breast milk. It's important to note that there is currently no cure for HIV, so you might want to pay attention, because a person can have HIV for years without noticing. So what specifically does HIV attack? HIV attacks CD4 blood cells. The virus enters the cell, replicates itself, and eventually kills the cell, leaving the replicates to find new CD4 cells to kill. The body tries to counter this by producing more CD4 cells, but if it can't produce the cells fast enough, HIV takes over the immune system and the person gets sick. Common symptoms of HIV are fever, chills, rash, night sweats, muscle aches, sore throat, fatigue, swollen lymph nodes, and mouth ulcers. In infants with HIV transmitted during pregnancy, symptoms include slow to grow and gain weight, slow learning to walk and talk, frequent diarrhea, swollen glands, yeast infections or thrush, enlarged liver and spleen, and pneumonia. There are 3 stages of HIV. Stage 1 is the acute HIV infection, when there is a large amount of HIV in the blood. One could get flu-like symptoms or may not feel ill at all. Stage 2 is the chronic HIV infection, also known as asymptomatic HIV infection or clinical latency. This is when there is a low amount of HIV in the blood, but the virus is still active. A person may not have symptoms or feel ill. Without treatment, this stage can last a decade or longer. Near the end of stage 2, the HIV blood levels, or viral load, increases and the number of CD4 cells decrease. Stage 3 is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome, aka AIDS. People who seek proper treatment/HIV prescriptions may never reach this stage. This is the most severe stage of HIV. The body's immune system is extremely compromised and gets sick very easily, contracting illnesses called opportunistic infections. To be diagnosed with AIDS, one needs a CD4 cell count below 200 cells per millimeter. On average, a person with AIDS survives for 3 years, which is why it is so important to get tested regularly when sexually active and get treatment early on. To be diagnosed with HIV, there are a few different tests available. The nucleic acid test, NAT, detects the presence of HIV in blood and can detect HIV within 10 to 33 days of contraction. However, it can be very expensive. Antigen and antibody tests detect HIV antibodies and antigens, obviously. Antigens are foreign substances that alert the immune system. When one contracts HIV, an antigen called P24 is produced. The test is done in a lab with one's blood from a vein. With these tests, HIV can be detected 18 to 40 days after the initial exposure. Rapid tests are available which require one to prick blood from their finger. However, the rapid tests could take up to 90 days to detect HIV after exposure. Antibodies are produced by one's immune system when the body comes into contact with HIV. Antibody tests detect antibodies to HIV in blood or oral fluid. These tests can detect HIV within 23 to 90 days. It's important to note that tests done with blood from a vein can detect HIV sooner than self-rapid tests done by pricking your finger. It's important that if you test positive for HIV, to have a follow-up test done. There are many benefits to getting tested for HIV. These benefits include protecting others from the virus. Early detection and treatment can prevent AIDS and lead to a normal sexual life. People can make smart relationship and childbearing decisions. One knows to live a healthier lifestyle with a good diet to protect their immune system, and one can get the support they need. However, there are some risks that apply to certain people that you may want to remember. Some tests need longer to be able to detect HIV after initial exposure. Some rapid tests may be inaccurate and have the possibility to come up falsely as positive. People who test positive may not be able to cope psychologically, which can have serious effects on mental health, such as depression and anxiety. One may suffer from prejudice or discrimination within their family, social group, work life, etc., because of being an HIV carrier. Let's look at some global HIV stats. The number of people living with HIV globally in 2020 was about 37.7 million. 63% of new cases of HIV in 2020 occurred in women or girls in sub-Saharan Africa, and only 6% of global HIV cases were recorded from Western or Central Europe and North America. Clearly, HIV is largely present in low to middle income countries. This is caused by a lack of access to education and resources that promote safe sexual activities. This shows how important sexual education is because it can massively help prevent the contraction of HIV and many other STIs. Helping countries with high HIV cases means making accessible education and treatment resources. The good news is that the global number of new HIV cases is declining. So, with help from you and the global community, we can all keep each other safe and eventually eradicate HIV, protecting lives around the world.